Hello, this is Daniel Stone, founder of Two Birds, One Stone Learning. Today, we're going to discuss the apps, software, tools, and technology that we use to teach our students. Episode number 1 focused on the apps and tools that we use to run our business. So today, we're going to discuss the tools, apps that we use for teaching. First, I'm going to talk to you about Google Translate. Google Translate obviously is one of those apps that people love to hate or they hate to love. Depends on how you look at it. I've had people that are professional translators and interpreters tell me how terrible Google Translate is. And at the same time, I've had people tell me how this particular app is actually improving and getting better. Long story short, Google Translate has become one of those things that I've used to bridge the communication gap when dealing with a low-level language learner. Basically, you have the language that you're trying to communicate in, and you have the target language that you're trying to teach. So you're able to have basically a side-by-side comparison. So it does do a decent job, but it definitely should not be something that totally runs your lesson, your training exercise, and this sort of thing. It should be something that is used on rare occasion just to bridge a minor communication gap. Often this has been something that has slowed and delayed training for very low-level students. But nevertheless, Google Translate is one of those apps that we use from time to time to bridge a communication gap. Next, there are a couple of podcasts that I will refer to. It'll be something that I may assign as a homework assignment, or it may be something that is used to help with the practice phase or the production phase of a particular learning objective. So a couple of podcasts that I like to go to from time to time. First, there's Voice of America. Voice of America has a English learning podcast, which can be broken down per proficiency band. So if you have a student who is a beginner level student or an intermediate level student or even an advanced level student, you can find material broken down to accommodate that particular learning objective based on the student's proficiency band. Also, there is what they call the Business English podcast, which is also good. There are two sides to this podcast. There is the free side, as well as there is the pay side. I'm only familiar with the free side, and what I have been able to gather has been adequate enough to help, if you're putting together a lesson and need some, authentic, business-related material to help with one of your working professionals. So it's worked out pretty good. Okay, next we have Quizlet. And I really, really, really like using Quizlet. Quizlet has been the thing that have used to engage students with their vocabulary. So the way that our classes typically work, whether it is a private one-on-one customized lesson, a pair group, a small group, or an actual class, students are assigned vocabulary that come from their lessons. This vocabulary could be from a textbook. It could be from a newspaper article, or it could be from a leveled reader. And with that being said, the vocabulary basically goes into Quizlet and becomes a study guide. And that study guide can basically be sent out to the students. And if you are somebody around my age, you've probably been familiar with the index cards, where on one side you have the term, and then on the other side you have the meaning of that term. And basically you would flip back and forth to get a full comprehension of the vocabulary. Well, Quizlet basically puts that in digital form, and you're able to do many things that you couldn't do before if you just did the old-fashioned index card. So Quizlet is something that I really, really like. It helps you organize your vocabulary. It takes the thing that had worked well in the past, the traditional index cards, and it puts it in digital form. You're able to actually, as a teacher, make tests from the vocabulary. You're able to do other activities. So I really, really recommend Quizlet. A lot of students get self-conscious about the pronunciation of particular words, and Quizlet has a way to pronounce it in native in a way that's done by native English. Okay. Next, obviously we have YouTube. YouTube has come in handy, I would say, for me when I am teaching a youth learner some very complicated material that comes from the tests, which are very popular and common in Japan, known as Eiken. So Eiken is spelled in English E-I-K-E-N. So Eiken tests are important tests in Japan. And it's very common here in Columbus, Ohio, to have very young students. And when I say very young, I'm talking about upper level elementary age, 4th grade, 5th grade, and then even in middle school, that these students are trying to take the top level Eiken exams. So basically what I mean by top level is the level of pre-1, which is a huge difference between the Eiken 2 exam. And here in the United States, students that need to take that test have to travel from here in Ohio to New York or New Jersey. So it is a major undertaking, and it's unfortunate that these tests are as far away as they are, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But the Quizlet, the YouTube has done well in terms of being able to quickly source material to help explain a kind of a complicated situation which the student is reading about or having vocabulary challenges with. And there's only so much that you can explain on things that are very complicated and above somebody's age, but nevertheless that's what the test is requiring them to know. So YouTube has done a really good job of bridging that. I wouldn't call it a communication gap. I guess a gap in life. Students are kind of expected to know about grown-up things, but yet they're still, relatively young. So YouTube has done well with that. And last but not least, the app that I mainly use it as a computer program, but it's also an app on my phone, and this is Google Classroom. And Google Classroom has been really good in terms of extending what takes place in the classroom to the outside. So students who are unable to come to class, they can find out what's going on by going into their Google Classroom accounts and getting basically an update. So it's kind of presented in the form of a blog, but it has done really good in terms of uploading PDF files on the learning objective that we've talked about in class. It's done really well in terms of taking links and being able to give people, the opportunity to study outside the class. You can take things, websites, audio recordings, and things of this nature, and you can include it into your classroom. You can have your roster of students, and you can send out emails to students. There's also ways that you can do, grades, report cards. There's ways that you can give assignments, and students that have their own computers can go into Google Classroom and do the assignment that they've been assigned and submit it. So it's all done paperless. So I'm still in the process of learning more about Google Classroom. Like anything, for example, like your smartphone, you're probably using your smartphone quite frequently. However, you probably understand only 50% or even less of what the capability of your smartphone can actually do. I think the same thing applies to Google Classroom in terms of my particular situation. So I'm just happy to have learned about it, and it's really been good in terms of taking a classroom and taking it online. So once again, to recap the apps that we use and other forms of technology and software: Google Translate, Podcast, Google Classroom, Quizlet, YouTube. There are other apps, software, and technology that we use in terms of teaching our students, but these will be the ones that I'll just go with for today. And I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you have any comments, please feel free to comment below, and our contact information will be listed in the description of this video. Thank you, and have a good day.